Good evening. Can you all hear this all right? Let's see if we can get a little better. Can we get a little more volume? Is that better? Anybody having trouble hearing me? I don't see any hands, so we'll keep going. I'm Dave Munger. Welcome to the March meeting of the Council of Neighbors and Organizations. We've dedicated this meeting to the debate between the four leading candidates for mayor in the city of Colorado Springs. I want to first of all say thank you to the El Paso County staff for making this, this facility available. It is a public facility, but it does take their time to set it up for us, and they are actually going to provide a live feed of this to people who can't make it. And for that matter, the Pikes Peak Public Library Library District will be putting this on their website. So if you want to look again, you weren't sure you heard that answer right the first time, you can check it again. I just want to say very quickly what KONO is about. We are a 39-year-old institution, 501c3, that exists to help neighborhoods be better. And we take that mission very seriously. We've developed a series of educational and training programs that we'll be putting out this spring. We encourage you to take advantage of that. If you're concerned about the way your neighborhood is operating or you think it could be better, please let us know. We'd be glad to help. And finally, to be really brief, I want to introduce our colleague, Rachel Beck. Rachel has been on the KONO board since 2012. She is a member of the board of the Patty Jewett neighborhood. She's on the board of the Palmer Land Trust, and she's a United Way volunteer, which gives us more in common. And she has 15 years of experience in local government, and she's currently the Policy and Communications Manager for Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. And we thank her employer for allowing her to be involved in this political activity. Rachel, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming, especially our candidates, and thank you for being willing to serve our city as in elected office. Our program tonight is really packed so that we can have as much substantive discussion as possible. So we're going to be strict on time. My fellow board member, Diane Butlak, is in the front row here, and Liz Rockwell, they will be timing you and holding up signs to let you know how much time you have left. I'll ask the audience to keep your applause till the end so that we can have as much time as possible for your questions at the end as well. There were cards on the table when you came in. You can write your questions there, and when you're finished with the card, just hold it up, and there are several people around the room who will come collect those from you and bring them down here to Dave. We'll start with opening statements. Then we have 4 questions that were prepared by KONO members at our last membership meeting. After that, we'll have the candidates ask each other a question, and then we'll do audience questions and finally closing statements. We drew straws to determine who would go first, and so for our opening statements, 3 minutes each. Mary Lou, and much to my chagrin, I have been asked to call you by your first name, so Mary Lou, I believe you are up first.
Well, it is my first name. Good evening. Thank you for being here. I have to say that there have been numerous forums, and anybody in this community who can say, I don't know what's going on, or I don't know who's running, must have their head in the sand, because there's certainly been lots of activity around this exciting race. My name is Mary Lou Makepeace. I'm a longtime resident of Colorado Springs. I arrived here 41 years ago, and have lived here ever since, worked here, raised my family here, and I say if I have the good fortune to live another 41 years, I plan to spend it here in Colorado Springs. There are a couple questions that always are asked of me. One is, what is with that Makepeace name? Did you make it up? Is it Native American? Is it a Quaker name? I've been asked some other things too, but no, you can now with authority say it's Old English. If you think of William Makepeace Thackeray from your high school literature class, that's the kind of Makepeace it is. And I acquired it when I married Tyler Makepeace, and when we went our separate ways, I kept the name. I like the name, and I also happened to have a young child at the time, and I wanted to have the same name that she has. So that's that. And the other question I get asked is, why are you doing this? You know, I was the mayor before. I served on council for 12 years, and I was mayor for 6 years. And you'd think I'd have my fill. And basically, I did at the time. I didn't think about running for office again, even though I was asked many times. But the last year or so, I have just been very upset with what I see going on in our community. I see a lack of energy. I see a lack of economic development. I see what appears to be some favoritism on the part of the city. And when I left office, things were going like gangbusters. Now, I know that there's been an economic downturn in the interim, but I don't think that I don't think we're on the right track to recover. And I know I have the skills that I used when I was mayor before to get us back on track and moving forward. Just a little bit about my history here, because I was on council and mayor, as I told you, but I've also been a caseworker for the Department of Social Services. I have led the Gay and Lesbian Fund for Colorado, working for the Gill Foundation, handing out millions of dollars. And I want to be your mayor, and I hope that I can address your concerns this evening. And if I don't, I'll be here later, and take me aside and tell me where we don't see eye to eye, or some suggestions that you might have for me. But again, thank you very much for being here this evening.
Well, my name is Joel Miller. I am a 1992 graduate from the Air Force Academy, and I have 2 degrees in mechanical engineering and astronautical engineering. Now, astronautical engineering is rocket science, and I've heard John mention a couple times it does not take a rocket scientist to run the city. But just in case it does, I've got that base covered for you all. I served in the military for 21 years as an officer. I'm now a FedEx pilot, but I'm willing to put that career on hold to serve as your mayor. My wife of 23 years and I have 4 children from age 18 down to 9. I've served on City Council, the Colorado Springs Utilities Board, where I served as chair of the Finance Committee for a $1 billion budget. I served as vice chair of the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Board and vice chair of the Colorado Springs Airport Advisory Commission. I believe in a limited government. On the local level, that means government should provide public safety, should maintain our roads and infrastructure and parks, and should create an environment for the free market. And after that, government should get out of our lives and out of our wallets. In recent years, due to influence from special interests, we have delved into things that do not fall under the role of government. One such program is City for Champions. I believe City for Champions is corporate welfare. People have been made to believe the state is paying for the projects. First of all, the state money is our money. And secondly, the state's portion would pay for less than 20% of the project's costs, and even that is not guaranteed. Locally, according to hundreds of pages of documentation, we would be on the hook for $350 million to pay for things that have nothing to do with the role of government. That includes $200 million for a downtown stadium and $130 million for infrastructure related to a downtown museum. I would not use a dime of your money for these projects unless every pothole is fixed, every stormwater issue is taken care of, every park is watered, and every person in this city is receiving unparalleled police and fire protection. And even then, I wouldn't spend your money on these projects because they don't fall in that core role of government. Some people say this is just one issue, but it's a very big issue. And even bigger than the $350 million local price tag is this question. If your next mayor is willing to spend $350 million of yours for these projects, what will they spend your money on next? I believe the best days of our city are ahead of us. I really do. But it's time that we stop putting people into office because they have the most signs. It's time we put people into office who are willing to serve the public and special interests. I ask for you to allow me to serve you as your mayor. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can't have a vibrant city without vibrant neighborhoods. That's why I'm very thankful to Kono and its constituent neighborhood organizations for the great work they do, and I want to thank Kono for sponsoring this event tonight. A lot of people ask me, John, why are you running for mayor of Colorado Springs? You've held a statewide office. You don't appear to be a stupid person. You've got to know that Colorado Springs has some incredible challenges. Why are you doing this? I cite two things. Number one, my love for Colorado Springs, and number two, I think I have a skill set that would be very beneficial to Colorado Springs at this point in its history. Let me elaborate on number one. Folks, I've literally grew up with Colorado Springs. I've lived here all my life. I've watched it grow from 40,000 to 460,000 people, the 41st largest city in America, larger than Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Miami, Florida, St. Louis, Missouri, New Orleans, Oakland. Did you know that? Folks, we're a large city, and large cities either grow economically or they stagnate. Which direction are we going to go? I think the next couple of years is very, very important. I think it's a tipping point. For the last 15 years, Colorado Springs has significantly lagged behind the rest of the state of Colorado in employment rates and new job creation. And over that same period of time, we have let our infrastructure deteriorate significantly. And over the last several years, I would submit to you that City Hall, the political environment at City Hall, has simply not been conducive to economic development and community development, and we have not addressed these very critical issues. So if I'm elected your mayor, job number one is to change the political environment at City Hall, make it more conducive to community and economic development. Number two, begin to invest in our infrastructure, folks, because we're not going to get companies that are here to expand if they don't see that this city's got some direction and that we're willing to do what only cities can do. Pave roads, do curb and gutter, stormwater. The public sector has to do that. That's an essential public service of a city. We've got to get onto that task. And if we do those two things, stabilize our political environment, begin to invest in infrastructure, we'll do a heck of a lot better job in aggressively promoting new job creation. I think I've got the management experience to effectively run the executive branch of city government. And I think my service as Attorney General has given me some contacts that will give greater connectedness to Colorado Springs with the rest of the state and the rest of the nation. I want to get Colorado Springs moving again, and I'm asking you folks to join me in that effort. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to be here. We have been doing this a lot lately. We're getting to know each other very, very well, and we appreciate that because it's all moving the dialogue forward, and I'm very honored to be a part of that. I'm Amy Lathan. I've been a county commissioner here in El Paso County for over 7 years. I didn't have anything to do with the venue, just saying that was all Kono. It's kind of nice to be in a little bit of a home field here, but it's a great pleasure to be here and talk about why I think that this is a direction, the platform that I have is a direction that will take this city forward. There are really three things that I think are critical in this race. Number one, we all know, has to do with the relationships and the leadership that's going on at the city right now and the infighting that's going on. Now, it's not the end-all, be-all, it's not the number one thing, but it is impacting business. That is the fighting and the headlines and the issues between the mayor's office and city council. And we all know that we've just changed this form of government and we're going through this process, but it was never intended to be a holy war between these two offices. I am going to move the mayor's office from the city administration building into City Hall so that I am there with city council, working with them, communicating with them on a daily basis, talking about the things that you bring to them because they're your elected officials, and talking about how they meet our mutual goals as a city, working together. It's low-hanging fruit, but it matters to the way we lead as a city and the way we set that tone and tenor. The second piece is the service delivery. That's what we do in local government. The things that we have to deliver to you, public works, IT, parks, fleet, infrastructure, all of those things. Those are the things that I do here in local government on a regional basis, day in and day out, and have for years. We work very closely with the Colorado Springs City Council and with our other municipalities, and we have to, because in order to be competitive, we have to work as a region. and we have to have a unified voice. And we have to change that way of thinking in a way that we haven't done in years in this community. And that is something that's very critical in the way I look at service delivery from your local government. The third thing is the advocacy for this city. That means that we are in competition with Denver. We are in competition with Fort Collins. We are in competition with the rest of the United States. Now, there are ways that we can work together, and in some ways we can gain efficiencies by working together. But folks, we want the cranes right here in Colorado Springs. We want employers expanding in Colorado Springs, and we want new primary employers coming here. And so we need advocacy that is positive and articulate and on point as to our assets and how we bring people here and how we keep them here. And those are things that I already do now and that I want to do even more through the city in a regional manner. And so I'm very excited to continue to talk about these issues. I thank you for your attention, and we're going to have a great discussion tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you're just coming in, a reminder that we will be taking audience questions at the end. There are cards at the table. If you filled one out, just hold it up, and there are several people around who will grab those from you. And also a reminder, if you will please hold your applause, that lets us have more time to hear what these candidates have to say. We will start with our 4 questions that were prepared by KONO members. You'll have 2 minutes each to answer the question, and then 2 minutes each to respond if you wish to. Our members feel that trust is an issue in city government. How do you plan to create transparency in your administration, including with your staff? And we'll start with you, please, Amy.
Okay. This is a huge issue. This is a huge issue. This matters at the local level tremendously. It matters at all level of government. I'm sorry, I'm a note taker. I'll put my notes down. But this is, at the local level, this is where we've got to get it right. We have to answer your questions. We have to answer the media's questions. We have to be open and transparent. We have surveys done. Let you have it, even if it's bad news. We need to talk about those kinds of things and be very open with our budget. This is something that I believe in to the extent that we have established numerous citizens oversight committees at varying levels so that citizens are driving the policy. Citizens are driving the discussions. Citizens are driving recommendations, and they're doing it in a broad and very, very open way. This is part of why I believe so strongly in changing those relationships over at the city, at City Hall, so that we are working together, we and City Council. And it's not about we're always going to agree on everything. We all know we won't. We will debate issues, and debate is good, and disagreements are good, but how do we do that? And do we do those in the headlines? And do we broadcast out to the rest of the world that we're dysfunctional? So we hear from business people saying we don't want to get involved in that mess. And I'm telling you, I've heard it because I've been at the table as we've been talking to existing businesses and bringing businesses in. That's a big problem. And then we hear it from our constituents. We hear it from people who say, you know what, I tried to get that information and y'all wouldn't tell me. Well, why? Anything that we do here, you need to know about. Anything that we do here, we need to answer. And so trust goes to the relationships that we have with our fellow elected officials. It goes to the relationships that we have with other elected officials throughout our region. You're going to hear me say the word region over and over again. And it goes to public information that's out there, easily accessible, and talking to the public at all times. Being able to sit down and talk with you, answer your questions, let you tell me how we got it wrong or we got it right, and how you think we can do it better. Citizen-driven, open, transparent government, and that's what this is all about.
Thank you, Amy. John?
Trust begins in the campaign. It's very important that candidates tell the same thing regardless of what the crowd is. Whether you're in front of a far-right crowd or a far-left crowd or people in between, your platform's the same. The things you stand for are the same. That's the beginning. Once you take office, you have to remember that lack of candor is the mortal sin of politics. And credibility is lost very quickly. When I think, historically speaking, some of the initiatives that have been presented to the voters, they've got to be easily understood, and people need to know exactly what the question is. No monkey business in terms of how you frame questions to the voters. That's absolutely essential for trust in government. How you communicate with the voters. I think we're going to have some very interesting discussions in the next several months after we've got a new mayor. Somebody's going to have to stand in front of all the residents of the city and talk about what our realistic revenue projections are, what our absolute priorities are in terms of critical infrastructure, and the extent to which there's a gap between those two, if in fact there is. And going to have to talk to the public, okay, how are we going to deal with these very serious problems? Here's our options. We can do nothing, or we can bond it, or we can think about property tax or sales tax. Everything's got to be on the table. Those discussions have to be very candid, very frank. And if they are, people will have trust in the process.
Joel?
Well, I think trust is critical in everything we do. That's the fundamental premise. And that goes back to that role of government. When you are paying taxes out of your wallet for sales tax, and you pay the clerk and recorder for your property tax, there are certain things that you're expecting and you're trusting your government to do with that money. So it comes down to those core roles. Do you trust your government with your tax dollars? Are they doing a good job? If you drove on the roads in Colorado Springs here, I would say that you're probably saying, no, they're not doing a good job. So that is a trust issue right there. Then, if you're committed to the fundamental roles of government, you need to be transparent to make it clear to the citizens that you are performing the fundamental roles of government, and you do that by transparency. We've had some recent happenings that impact this trust issue. We've had almost $2 million of outside legal counsel spent from the city's general fund. Now, there may be times when we need expert legal advice on something that our lawyers don't know about, but we have 30 lawyers, and we have over a $5 million budget for the city attorney's office. Where is the trust there? We've spent almost $2 million on severance pay for people that have gotten fired from the city by the mayor, and payoff money, hush money, confidentiality agreements that were attached. We have studies that are done that are not released to the public. This week there were 2 of them announced, one by the county and one by our CVB and associated businesses that we spent $45,000 on. But the issue is we have to be able to trust. If we look at the taxpayers in the eye and say, we are doing the best we can with the fundamental roles that we're doing, and then turn around and say, we've got money to build a stadium, and we need a tax increase, by the way, to do those fundamental roles, that is a breach of trust, and that is what's killing us right now. Thank you.
Mary Lou?
Well, when trust once lost is very difficult to restore. And so we have a monumental task ahead of us in restoring trust in our local government. And that's, I think, legitimate on the part of citizens is what are they doing? What are they doing with our tax dollars? And what are they just doing in the city? Everything is contentious. Nobody agrees with anything. That's not what we voted for when we voted for this new form of government. I believe that the mayor and the council both have to be very, very conscious of the fact that they're going to be watched. All of our activities will be watched, and we have to be vigilant that we don't have the appearance of violating trust, that we are not having secret meetings, that we are not granting special favors to friends, that we follow the Open Records Act and we follow the Open Meetings Act. When media ask questions, the answers should be there. When citizens ask questions, the answers should be there. I think a friend of mine called to ask for some information, and she was told, just Google it. I don't consider that good customer service, and that's the kind of thing that damages trust, erodes trust. But trust goes 2 ways, and I think that the elected officials also need to trust citizens. If we provide good information to citizens, then we must learn to trust citizens and their decisions. And so when there's an election and the citizens vote for something and the council decides that's not what they want, that erodes trust. So it's a monumental task for for council and for the mayor.
Thank you. 2 minutes to respond if you wish. You don't have to. We'll start with you, John. All right. Joel?
Well, I would like to respond because there seems to be a lot of consensus around the fact that we should have uniform agreement on everything. I don't think that's what people expected when they voted for the council-mayor form of government. I believe that there are a lot of special interests paying a lot of money into this campaign because what they'd like to see on city council is a 9-0 vote that the mayor then signs and we're done. Nobody expects that. What we should have is we should have disagreement, and when the citizens aren't being served, we should have members of the government that are standing up and saying, you are not being served the way you are thinking you are being served, because there's no other way to find out. Unfortunately, you don't want to have to babysit your politicians, but at the same time, we all need to. We all need to do it at every level of government, and when we have agreement among everybody, then we know that we have a problem, because that's not how our system should work. We should be bringing out the pros and cons for each issue. We should make them transparent. We shouldn't do it behind closed doors. And to say that we should figure out all of our disagreements behind closed doors and not let the world see it, I think that's a real problem. And that erodes the trust as well. So we've got to have discourse, we've got to have facts and information, and we've got to make that all available to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Lou?
I didn't hear anyone say that they supported decisions behind closed doors, so I resent your implicating that.
Amy?
Thank you. I just wanted to just jump in and just mention, we at the local level here at the county have worked very intentionally over several years to really fundamentally transform the way we deliver services and the transparency that we use. We have received an A+ rating through a third-party Sunshine Review Group. That's been done through hard work, working very intentionally through our budget. We set up a Citizens Budget Oversight Committee comprised of citizens in the private sector who come along and look at everything that we spend and rank our spendings and make recommendations to us as we go through every budget process. In all of our operational savings plans that we've gone through over the last several years to transform this form of local government, we have found ourselves with an increased credit rating from Standard & Poor's and Moody's for the work that we've done. This is real evidence of the kind of mentality and the kind of belief that I have, and that a team of people can have when they provide local government services with the citizens in mind and with openness in mind and answering questions. We don't have secret meetings. The law allows for local government officials to meet in private for personnel matters and certain legal negotiations that are only disclosed, that no decisions can be made and are only allowed under state law. That's it. I have spent hours and hours and hours in this room and other hearing rooms listening to citizens as long as it takes, as many as want to come and speak, because this is an open and public process. Further, I'll go and meet with anyone in their homes, on their roads, in their businesses, in their schools, and I have over all of these years, to talk about their issues and hear what their concerns are. And I believe that that's what makes local government great, and that's the kind of leadership that I want to bring into the city.
Thank you. Our next question, what specific plans do you have to create jobs and improve our local economy? We'll start with you, John, this time.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, we have to nurture and promote the businesses that are here. Historically speaking, 80 to 90% of new jobs are going to come from the companies that are here. Small, medium, and large companies that are already here. The mayor's got to be a partner working very closely with the Regional Business Alliance and other economic development organizations to do the best we can to nurture and promote those companies. That means going up to the Economic Development Commission, seeking, helping them with innovation grants, smart grants, any type of assistance that they think would help them grow, because that's where the most number of jobs are going to come from. We also have to be very aggressive about trying to attract companies here. But as I said in my opening remarks, for us to be truly successful in that, number one, we're going to have to show those companies that we want to expand here, companies we want to move here, that Colorado Springs is willing to invest in itself. We're going to have, we're going to do the roads, we're going to do the bridges, we're going to do the stormwater that cities have to do. And that's a message we also have to send to the companies that we're trying to attract. But I guarantee you, if I'm your mayor, I will work tirelessly with economic development organizations to sell Colorado Springs to companies that might move here. I'll be out in the companies that are here saying, what can Colorado Springs do? What can City Hall do to help you expand? The fact of the matter is, we can't, government is not going to turn the economy around, but we got to make sure our City Hall doesn't stand in the way like it has been for the last several years.
Thank you. Joel?
Economic development has to be deliberate. It can't be like a bone finding a dog. We have got to work together to make this a fundamental priority. Here's how I plan to do it. There's more information on this on the action plan section of my website. We're going to sit down with the Economic Vitality Department and refocus that department from 100% full-time focus on City for Champions onto providing the key thing that government should do, and that's creating an environment for the free market. We haven't done that. We need to sit down with different business sectors, all get in the same room, make it public. There's no reason the public shouldn't be a part of these discussions. In the same room with City Council, the pertinent staff of the city, with Colorado Springs Utilities, and with Pikes Peak Community College and the higher education institutions that will help bring our workforce the training that they need for these folks that are going to fill these jobs. Then we get together and we figure out the top 10 list to say, what are the things that are obstructing you from expanding your business here or bringing like-type businesses to town? We have a top 10 list and we farm it out to whoever's at the table. City Council, these are ordinances that need changing. Go with the city attorney and work on those. I'll work with my staff on these restrictions that we currently have in city policy. Colorado Springs Utilities, how are our economic development agreements going that we can help people build their infrastructure with a net benefit to the ratepayer and provide these things? And then we get together and we present this to the entire business community, not just the people who know the right person, the special handshake, or do the right kind of business in the right part of town and who donated to the right campaign. We need to make this available to everybody. Right now, you can't go on our website and find how all of these things work together to make this a great place to do business. You should be able to go on the website, one-stop shopping, the city's website, to find out what is available to you from every facet of our city, from education to utilities to workforce development, and it should be available to every business. Thank you.
One thing about going last is everybody else has pretty much said things, so I can agree or disagree. I absolutely agree and would work shoulder to shoulder with the new executive director of the Business Alliance. I know they've had a little bit of struggling going on the last year as they make their transition. We need to attract new business. We always need to be working on that because our good companies are being recruited by other communities, and so we have to make sure that we pay attention also to our local communities and what do they need? What do they need from us? Are they having trouble with code enforcement, or are they having trouble with the fire department? A lot of times a conversation with the city staff and the business can solve the problem. I want to let them know that we appreciate them being here and providing jobs for citizens and that we want them to grow. Those things are very basic. But you know, we also have work to do. If a business person is coming to town to consider whether or not to move their business here, and they look at our potholes and they look at our weeds in the median and they look at untrimmed trees, who's going to come here and invest millions of dollars in moving a new company here? And you know, we also have to be careful how we talk about ourselves. We're pretty good at finding out what's wrong with the community and not so good at talking about the good things that are here. And you know, I have this kind of nightmare that some big CEO is going to fly into our airport, and as he's driving in a cab, first of all, he sees the trashy part of town, and then he says to the cab driver, "Hey, what's it like living in Colorado Springs?" And the cab driver says, "Oh God, we have the craziest mayor, and the city council and the mayor can't get along, and oh, these potholes." Well, that's not the kind of message that we need to give to people who are considering moving a business here. We have to get a better script for ourselves on how we talk about how wonderful Colorado Springs is.
Thank you. Any response, Joel?
I still...
Oh, I beg your pardon. Amy.
It's all right. It's all good. Here's what I'm going to do. We've got to improve business, obviously. Here's how we compete, and here's how we help our existing businesses and how we bring in new businesses. It's through the processes that the businesses have to go through, the actual things that people who take the risks, the capitalists who put up the money, who take the risk, who think of the ideas, who have the guts to go out and set up a storefront or whatever they do and hire people and create those jobs, what do they have to go through to get that done? That's development review, right? That's what they go through. They walk in and they have to go through processes. We need to be asking why every time we have a process in front of them. So, for example, if a business comes along and they go through and they meet with development review, and development review says, here's your punch list, here are all the things that you need to do. And 6 weeks later, they tell them, you know what? We have another agency that wants to look at your plan, and they think that you should change this plan. And you know, all of a sudden, they're into it for tens of thousands of dollars more, and not just their business plan is getting blown up, but their investors are getting shy. And all of a sudden, that money's drying up, and they are $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 down the road into a plan that is inconsistent, that somehow got changed. Inconsistency kills business. So I have a huge platform. I have, little shameless plug, amylathanformayor.com. I have a platform there. I have a number of plans that speak specifically to the development review process and the impact that that has on business. And folks, before we even get to that, we've got to eliminate the business personal property tax. Before we raise taxes, we have to raise the economy, the activity in the economy. And this is what's hitting business. We have to be very strategic about the ways that we allow and help business to do what they do best, which is start and hire. That's what's critical, and that's where the rubber meets the road at the local government level. And so you'll find a whole bunch of different ideas that will move the needle on this issue.
All right, let me try that again. Any response? Mary Lou?
I would just reiterate that stopping the bickering at City Council is the #1 step to improving our community and making it more business friendly.
Yeah, I just want to inject a note of optimism. I think there's a lot of things percolating in Colorado Springs that this new mayor and new council needs to, as I use the term, nurture and promote. Folks, there's some exciting things happening downtown. The O'Neill Group's purchase of the Santa Fe train station and their view of a catalyst campus that could bring 1,000, 1,500 jobs, which for the most part would be young professionals, because this is very high-tech stuff. Most of the people in this room don't know how to do it. This brings young professionals to our town. There's some good things happening out at the airport. This commercial aeronautical zone is beginning to attract the kinds of companies that we want. This Sierra Nevada is an absolutely fantastic development, and there's other things that are going to follow behind that. So I just reiterate what I said in my opening statement. I think this is a tipping point. And we've got to make sure we stabilize the political environment, make it conducive to economic development, begin to invest in infrastructure, and we can capitalize on some of these things that are percolating and get Colorado Springs moving again.
I'd kind of like to add to that. I had some folks, a couple of folks last week say, well, you can't do anything new. You can't set up any new incentive programs or any new kinds of regulatory schemes, so to speak, because people who came before never had them. So you can't do it now. And I just have to submit to you that I could not disagree more, because if that's where we are, if we've come to a place where we've thought all the thoughts and we have all the ideas, and this is as good as we go, which is great, we're great, but this is it, and we just stop right here and we can't move forward with new ideas, then I'm out of luck, because I have a lot of new ideas, and I know the business community has a lot of new ideas, and we do have to move forward. We have to go forward in a new way to compete, because this is a very competitive market out there in the world. Companies come along and they want to know, what are you going to do for us to expand or to come into this community? A lot of them want to know, how much cash do you have on the table? That's just the way it works. Well, we're competing with this city over here. They've got this much money. We sit across the table and we say, we can do this in the commercial aeronautical zone, or we've got an enterprise zone, we've got some sales and use tax credits. That's great. Where's the cash? Let me tell you how else we compete. We compete in that regulatory environment by creating a situation where they can get through the process with consistency and reliability and speed. And that, to many companies, is more valuable than a bucket of cash. And I know it because I've been there. We had a company from California come along and say, we were going to get our building permit in 7 years. And I said, you got 6 weeks? We can do this. And they said, Amy, we've never heard anyone from the local government say yes. Here's how we can say yes. And that's the mentality. We have to ask why we're doing it, and we have to figure out how to say yes. And that moves the needle for business.
Thank you. At Kona, we believe that neighborhoods are one of the building blocks of democracy. So what we'd like to know from you is, how do you intend to make use of existing neighborhood organizations in your administration? And we'll start with you, Mary Lou.
I've had this conversation with a number of people because I agree that neighborhood organizations are the building blocks of the community and indeed of democracy, because who cares more about this city, at least the part where you live, than the people who live in the neighborhoods. And when we don't have strong neighborhoods, which we have these days thanks to Dave Munger and his predecessors, and now in your new home where you can be legitimate, thank you, County. I have proposed, and I am going to, when I'm mayor, establish an Office of Neighborhood Relations. Because I think too often, historically, we have treated neighborhoods like the other. That when neighborhoods come, often hand in hand, trying to plead their case, we put them through the hoops, trying to make them justify rather than just tell us what their concerns are. And I see this Office of Neighborhood Outreach as being an intermediary to help solve many of those problems before it ever comes before council, before it ever gets to a point where it's a we, they. And I think that the communication between development and the neighborhoods has improved tenfold, and I just want it to be even better, because we're building a great community here, and that can only happen when we have competing interests, differing interests, talking to each other and working things out. So I think it can be very beneficial, and it will probably save the developer money, it will probably save city staff time, and I'm optimistic enough to believe that we can have a really positive outcome.
Thank you. Amy.
There are a lot of folks in this room that I recognize who have been on regional leaders trips. And I've been on a number of those over the years, and they're very, very fruitful in many ways. We go and leaders from around the community, some elected officials, we go and we kind of look at how are other cities doing things. And sometimes we take our ideas to them too, and we learn a lot. Let me tell you the couple of things that we learn about what make communities great, what makes successful cities when we go on these trips, and what we know here. The number one thing, they work regionally. Doesn't mean they agree on everything. Nobody is here saying we're going to agree on everything, but they work regionally. They work very intentionally to have a unified voice. That is something that is a common denominator everywhere we go. The other thing that they do is they support their neighborhoods, and they work out of their communities, their neighborhoods. They work on community development. From the city's perspective, how do we support those neighborhoods? We support them with public safety, obviously. We support them with policies that help businesses, that help create the jobs, that give people the homes. We look at various ways to leverage funding and opportunities for affordable housing within communities. All of this branches out into some of the other issues that we face as a community as it relates to homelessness and vagrancy and things like that. But they support their neighborhoods. They work as communities. And that has got to be something that's very intentional. And I want that in Colorado Springs to be driven by the communities, to be driven by the neighborhoods and the people who are there, who are dealing with issues in their individual neighborhoods. And I want them to bring those issues to us, things that you do, Dave, and all of your folks. I want to work through them in their line level and have them guide us and how we continue to help that.
As I said at the beginning, you can't have a vibrant city without vibrant neighborhoods. Neighborhoods contribute tremendously to what would otherwise be burdens on the city. Policing. There aren't enough cops to watch everybody's house. If neighborhoods organize themselves in a way that everybody's looking out for the folks that are out of town. In my neighborhood, the neighborhood association leads the way in wildfire mitigation efforts, making sure we're all cleaning out the dead wood but behind our houses and things like that. Those are the kinds of things that neighborhoods can do. I mean, our neighborhood even gets together and adopts a family for Christmas. Those are the kinds of things that neighborhoods can bring to a community that are so vital to the essence of that community. In terms of how we outreach, you know, I've been going to town hall meetings that politicians have had for years. And what I've noticed that nobody shows up unless it's the partisan advocates of the particular politician. Folks, that's not, the mayor is a nonpartisan job, and instead of just having, oh, let's have a town hall meeting and have 20 people show up, I'm going to use the neighborhood organizations as the outreach point from the mayor's office. Maybe we'll have regional meetings with neighborhood organizations. Maybe a couple of times a year have an entire Kono meeting, because these are the people that are absolutely involved in the community, dedicated to the community, and can help take the message back to their neighborhoods. So if I'm the mayor, neighborhood organizations and Kono are going to be a big part of our public outreach.
Could you give us some specifics on how you envision us being a part of your outreach efforts?
Let me give you some examples. As I say, I can imagine having maybe a couple of meetings a year where Kono invites all their member organizations down to Centennial Hall like this, and we have a mayor's town hall meeting that actually has some people there instead of 10 folks that are concerned about one particular very small issue. I can see saying to Dave or who's ever in charge of Kono, can we put together a Northeast neighborhood meeting, because there's an issue out there that we need to talk about. I can see saying, as the city hopefully gets off its duff and begins to actually spend some money out in the southeast quarter, we've studied that thing to death, we got to start making some infrastructure changes. Meet with those neighborhoods. You know, what are their concerns as we go forward? I think we can use the neighborhood organizations very effectively to, for the mayor's office to communicate, and the city in general to communicate with the citizens of Colorado Springs.
Thank you. Joel?
From my time on city council, one of the most contentious issues are when neighbors come and there's a planning issue that comes in front of the council. And one of the things you hear over and over is, who was notified of what was going on? And our city code says, well, if you live within 500 feet or you live within 1,000 feet, you get a postcard. I mean, postcards are good, but we know as running a campaign, they're also expensive. And we don't reach as many people as we'd like to. We live in 2015. We should have a database as a city of every organization, every neighborhood organization, every HOA, what their Facebook page is, what their website addresses are, so that we can use that and work with our city communications department to provide information to the neighborhoods. Because as has been set up here, that is where the rubber meets the road, is with the neighborhoods. So if we want to communicate with the citizens, we communicate with the neighborhoods, and I think Kono is a big part of that. There's no reason why, if I live in a certain part of town and I own property in another part, or I'm considering buying it, I wouldn't have any idea about what's going on. I should be able to go onto the city's website and say, what is every planning permit that has been pulled, so I can know what's going on. So if I want to take part in it, I don't wait until it's past news and then it's too late. I should be able to have access to that information all the time, and we don't. And I think that's where we can get involved with our neighborhoods. I think that's a way that we can use our resources to make sure people have information so that they know that their government is doing well by them. The other part of it, besides planning, is involvement. I've not received from my neighborhood organization, my HOA, one notice of a city board or commission opening. It's always posted, there's a press release, it's posted in the newspaper, but why isn't the city going out to neighborhood organizations and to Kono? Maybe they are, but I haven't ever received one, and it should be that way. We have an infill development committee that's going to be talking about your neighborhoods and what happens to them, and we have a lopsided membership, which includes mostly developers.
Thank you. Shameless plug, Kono does have a newsletter. You can sign up on our website, and we do include notices of board and commission openings that we know of. Any response to anything, Amy?
You know, I just want to mention code enforcement is a huge issue. It's a huge issue for neighborhoods, and one that we need to be able to really sit down and be serious about what we're going to change to give the kind of tools to our neighborhoods and to the organizations that they need from a code enforcement perspective. We need to allow citizens to be able to go and be a part of the solutions, to be a part of what we're doing in our communities, to clean things up, to have access to medians and paints, and there are all kinds of different ideas. We've got paint resources. You can't believe how many paint resources we have that people can have access to that really can change communities. Minor little things all the way up to the grand policy issues. I just want to mention that I think in the years that, I mean, I've lived here for over 30 years. This is just a tremendous place to live. And in recent years, in the disasters that we've gone through, as a community as a whole, this is all of us together, that we've lived through this. Whether you were impacted directly, whether indirectly, everyone was impacted. And as we sat in response and recovery, and as I went and was in areas where fires were burning and in areas where we were sifting ashes and with people and connecting them to new medications that they had lost and to finding things that they needed, I saw an extraordinary outreach in this community, the likes of which make us all remember those times and how important it is that we as a community are working together. And that's neighborhood, that's family, it's an extended family. It matters. My husband and I have lived in the same house in the little neighborhood in the middle of town for over 19 years. We have a little community there. It's so special, it's so important. And we have to recognize it from our perspective to protect it for all of you and give you a voice at the city to guide what we do as we work together through many of these issues.
Any response?
I think the city can really up its game in terms of digital outreach. Folks, that's the future. Our young people communicate in that fashion. And there's some really remarkable examples of cities around the country, Honolulu and others, that have really gotten very sophisticated about how citizens contact them, how data is captured, and how that data is available to citizens. And that would be one of my areas of emphasis. I want to make sure we're technologically at the top of the game in terms of how we digitally communicate with our citizens, as well as the face-to-face communication that I talked about in meetings with neighborhood organizations.
Joel, further thoughts, and then Mary Lou.
I wanted to just return one more time to the issue of trust in government, because I think this is an important part about it. When there are plans being devised for your neighborhoods or near your neighborhoods, then if those plans are devised and they're not including neighborhood organizations, then that is another breach of the trust in neighborhoods. If we're putting together a policy on how we do infill development and how we could change the zoning requirements to make it easier for infill, or removing the obstacles to repurpose a building that's been vacant for a decade. If we're talking about the South Nevada or the South Academy Economic Opportunity Zone, where are the regular neighborhood participants of those situations? We're not reaching out, and typically we're having neighbors reading about initiatives in the newspaper rather than having them communicated. It's an issue of trust. And one of my issues has been that of eminent domain, making sure that people are comfortable in their homes. A sacrosanct principle of the Constitution is life, liberty, and property. And unless we can guarantee that we're not going to take people's property for some project that comes along, then we've lost all trust. So I think that's really important, and it's something that the city must make that promise to the neighbors in all areas of the city.
Thank you. Mary Lou.
We in Colorado Springs, the city of Colorado Springs, has a very weak technology department. We've gone through staff, we've gone through department heads, and we still have an outdated technology department. And cities across the country are moving to open records, complete transparency, so that any citizen can go online and look up whatever it is they want to know. They're collaborating with other governmental entities within their communities, and everybody puts the information that's open online. So if you want to go to Cincinnati and find out what the teenage birth rate is, or how many foreclosures, or you want to go to Williston, North Dakota and find out how many oil wells there are, or who's drawing building permits, all of that is online and available for anybody to look at. You don't have to call the city, you don't have to wait for them to provide it to you, it's right there. And I know that that is a lengthy process to get up and running at that level, but I think it's one we have to do. This is a community that is highly gifted in technology, and we need to get government to rise to the level of our community.
Thank you. Many of you, many KONO members, were heavily involved in the effort, the recent proposal to address our stormwater backlog, which now stands at $706 million in capital projects. We have another $14 million in maintenance that remains unaddressed. In addition, we have more than $1 billion in streets and bridge maintenance needs, plus transit, public safety, parks, and other things that are on a long list that we don't even have a number for, technology. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave our city's infrastructure below average grades for safety, condition, and capacity. So now that I've thoroughly depressed you, can you tell us how would you correct and fund this significant problem? And please be specific as you can. Joel, we'll start with you, please.
Well, the first thing we have to do is spend what we have. We have not been doing a good job of executing the budget dollars that we do have. In 2013, the consolidated budget report for the city said that although we allocated a certain amount for streets, we underspent the budget by $1 million. There's no reason for that. We certainly didn't do it because the streets were in perfect condition, I can tell you that. We are repeatedly rolling over PPRTA maintenance dollars. 20% of your PPRTA dollars, your 1 penny sales tax that you voted for, go to road maintenance, and it's allocated by population to the member entities. And for years running, we've had rollover funds. Last year for 2014, there was a $5 million that wasn't even planned to be used. There was no plan for it. So we have to use the dollars that we have available to us and make sure that we're executing that. And that goes along with transparency. I would make sure that our budget is available online. To go along with what Mary Lou said, our budget, every line item, when there's an expense going out the door, we should put that online for people to see how well are we doing our job at allocating and executing our budget. When I look at the existing funding that we have, and I'll talk about stormwater specifically, for 2015, $5.5 million for stormwater. We have another $8 million for our capital improvement program, $3 million of infrastructure related to protecting Colorado Springs utilities infrastructure. And then, very shortly, we will be paying off our skip bonds from the past, and we'll have another $7.8 million. If we focus and we are disciplined as a mayor and a city council, we can work together and we can chip away at the most critical ones. Now, are we going to get all of them? No, we're not. But when I look at the most critical things that have to be done for the health and safety of the city, we need to make sure we're executing the dollars and we're focusing our priority on those most critical issues, and I believe that we can tackle those.
Thank you. Could you tell us a little more about how you would improve that execution, or maybe what you see as some of those priorities that you mentioned?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, you know, the number keeps growing. From $1 billion, now I'm hearing $1.6 billion. And if you all walk around your homes, you could find $250,000, I'm sure, in things that were capital improvements to your home. I know that we need new carpet. Our countertops need updating, I'm told. We need wood floor here. And I could easily come up with, and I need Trex on my deck because I'm tired of painting it every year. But the truth is, if I have sewage backing up in my basement, that's going to be the top priority for any home improvement dollars that I have. So when I talk about the city's budget, if I look at, and I love the city auditorium, so please don't demonize what I'm going to say, but when they're talking about $300,000 to renovate the city auditorium bathrooms, that probably not ought to not be on the same level as a drainage culvert that is in disrepair. So we have to prioritize things according to health and safety, and I believe we have budget dollars to execute the most critical ones, and we can do that.